Miltown, a small town in Pennsylvania. On the map, it looked like a dot at the intersection of two highways surrounded by forests. Here, everyone knew everyone and everything. Who married whom, who opened a store, who had a child. People lived calmly, and the only news usually were school fairs, victories in baseball games, and discounts on gasoline. In the mornings, the town came alive with the noise of school buses. In the evenings, it smelled of fresh bread from the bakery and smoke from chimneys. Here, no one locked the doors, at most with a latch. Among the residents, Sarah Langston stood out especially.
Sarah was 32 years old. She worked in elementary school, teaching reading and writing. For children, she was not just a teacher. They reached out to her like to a quiet harbor. Sarah knew how to listen to each one, even the loudest and most difficult students. Every morning she walked the same road, a gray coat, neatly gathered hair, in her hands an old bag with notebooks and a thermos with coffee. Neighbors smiled at her, waved their hands. "Good morning, Mrs. Langston. How is Michael? Is everything all right?" She nodded, smiled in return, but her smile always seemed a little strained, as if glued. Colleagues at school often said, "Sarah takes too much on herself. Extracurricular projects, clubs." Yes, but did you notice? Her eyes are tired, as if she's looking through us. At home, Sarah was awaited by her husband, David Langston, 36 years old. He was the complete opposite, loud, confident, with a wide smile and a new SUV. For friends and neighbors, he seemed successful and charming. For Sarah, he was a tyrant. At first, there were only words, biting, humiliating, offensive. Then pushes, blows, threats. Neighbors sometimes saw bruises on Sarah. "And Sarah, are you all right?" carefully asked Mrs. Hayes, the neighbor across the street. "Yes, I fell off a chair," Sarah answered, lowering her eyes. Everyone understood that she was lying, but in Miltown it was not customary to interfere.
Sarah endured. She endured for the sake of her son Michael, who was 10 years old. She lived for him, for his laughter, for his future. Sometimes at night she sat by his bed, stroked his hair and whispered, "You are my everything. For you I will endure." She put aside money, coins, bills, hidden in an old jar under a shelf. She dreamed one day to save enough to leave with her son. But David found the hiding places and laughed. "Do you think you can escape? You are nobody, a teacher with a pathetic salary. I will take the child, and you will be left empty-handed. The court will be on my side." These words he repeated often, and each phrase was imprinted in her mind. In spring, everything changed. David filed for divorce. He stated that he would leave Sarah without money and marry 24-year-old Lisa from the neighboring town. In the bar, he loudly told friends, "This fool is good for nothing anyway. I will finally start living for real." Sarah accidentally heard this. She stood behind the door, and her husband's words hit harder than any blow. That evening, she sat in the kitchen looking out the window. The clock was ticking. The hand seemed to pierce her heart every second. She whispered, "He took everything from me. He will even take Michael, but he will not take my life. Never."
After that, everything changed. At school, Sarah remained the same, quiet, strict, and kind. No one noticed the changes, but at night she went down to the basement. Among the boxes and old furniture lay a pistol, a gift from her brother for protection. She disassembled it, cleaned it, practiced shooting behind the house when the town was asleep. New entries appeared in her diary. I do not seek death, I seek justice. All these years they laughed at me, but soon they will hear my voice.
October 14, 2007. David's house was full of guests, music, laughter, toasts for a new life. Sarah sat in the car nearby and watched the lights, listening to how someone else's laughter sounded. By midnight, the lights went out, the guests left, and the house remained only David and Lisa. At 2:30 a.m., neighbors heard 3 pops. Someone thought firecrackers. Others, a car started. No one paid attention. At dawn, the police discovered the terrible. David lay in the living room with a bullet in his chest. Lisa in the kitchen with a shot in the head. On the wall, written in blood, was the word revenge. Next to it lay the weapon, registered to Sarah. But Sarah herself was gone.
3 days after the murder of David and Lisa, an envelope arrived at the office of the local newspaper. White, unremarkable. There was no return address, no name, only neat school handwriting. For publication. Editor Tom Bennett opened it. Inside was a sheet of paper, covered in neat female handwriting. I am not a murderer. I am a shadow. I did what you were all afraid to do. For 10 years you turned away. For 10 years you saw my bruises and stayed silent. Now you see blood, and now you hear me. Do not look for me. I am near. This is only the beginning. Tom read and could not believe his eyes. His hands were shaking. He called the police, but within an hour all journalists already knew about the letter. By the evening, the whole town was discussing it.
The town changed in just a few days. People began to close shutters and install new locks. In the evenings, the streets became empty. In the stores, they discussed only one thing. Where is Sarah? In the bar, men argued. She is hiding in the forest. I heard she has a hideout there. Nonsense! She is already in another state. Or maybe she is sitting right around the corner and listening to us right now. Women whispered at the bus stop. Honestly, I understand her. Are you crazy? She's a killer. And what was he then? An angel? Children drew her portrait in class and wrote under it, "We miss you, Miss Langston."
A month after the first crime, David's lawyer was killed. He was found in a car near his office, a shot to the temple. On the passenger seat lay a note, "You helped him." Investigator Harris told reporters, "This is not a coincidence. This is a system. The murders are connected."
A few days later, a new envelope came to a major television channel. It was read in the evening news. You call me a murderer, but the murderer was him. He killed me for 10 years, slowly, every day. I only returned what belonged to me. You think I will stop? No, because this is not murder. This is justice. After that, people stopped going out in the evenings. The town seemed dead. At the entrance to the school where Sarah worked, flowers and soft toys appeared. Some wrote, "In memory of the victim of violence." Others left notes,
Let her burn in hell. Pupils asked other teachers, "Is Miss Langston bad now?" And no one knew what to answer.
After the second letter, the case was handed over to the FBI. Agent Thomas Raines spoke at a press conference. She acts emotionally, but plans cold-bloodedly. Each murder is not just death, it is her message. She wants to be heard. Psychologists suggested, Sarah has a list. Everyone who betrayed or humiliated her was supposed to answer. 2 weeks later, Lisa's friend died, the very one who laughed at Sarah in the bar. A teacher? Who would take her except David? She was found in her parents' house, one shot. On the nightstand lay a note. You laughed. Now no one in the town was laughing.
Local editions came out with headlines. The Teacher Ghost. 3 letters, 3 victims. Justice or madness? Who is next on her list?
October 18th, 2007. The police received the first letter. Newspapers come out with headlines. She is among us. The teacher became a ghost. November 10th. David's lawyer is found dead. Note: you helped him. November 26th. The third victim, Lisa's friend. Note: you laughed. By this moment, the town understood the murders were not random. This was a list.
The FBI strengthened the case. Profilers described Sarah as a woman acting methodically. She knew the town like the back of her hand, chose the moment when the victim was alone, left short messages, symbolic verdicts. Agent Thomas Raines said, "She does not hide completely. She wants to be heard. Her weapon is not only the pistol, but also words."
Miltown split apart. Some called Sarah a monster. She is a murderer, whatever her life was. Blood cannot be justified. Others whispered, I understand her. 10 years of silence. Who could endure? In church, the priest said from the pulpit, We are all guilty of her pain, but no one has the right to decide the fate of others. But his words did not calm. People lived in fear. In the evenings, the streets were empty. Shops closed earlier. In the bars, no one laughed anymore.
At the beginning of December, a police patrol noticed light in an abandoned shed on the edge of town. The door was half open. Inside smelled of dampness and gunpowder. On the walls hung maps of the town with crosses. On the table lay photographs of people, some faces crossed out with a red marker. In a drawer, they found a list of new names, the school principal where Sarah had worked, and the local priest. The shed was arranged like a hideout. Sleeping bag, flashlight, canned food, but Sarah herself was not there anymore.
The last letter. January 1, 2008. A television channel received a new envelope. It was read in live broadcasts. I see how you all hide. I see fear in your eyes. I do not hide. I am near. I do not kill for blood. I kill for memory. When I am done, you will understand. Justice exists. Journalists read the letter. TV ratings broke records. But together with ratings, fear grew. People almost stopped leaving their houses. Even a trip to the store became a test. Sarah's psychology. Investigators studied her diaries. In them were lines. Each of them took a piece of my life. Some laughed, others turned away. And he made my life a prison. I am not a murderer. I am a mirror. I only return.
Psychologists noted Sarah was not a typical maniac. She did not kill for pleasure. For her, it was retribution. She wanted the pain to be visible.
January 5th. The police surrounded the house of Sarah's friend. An informant reported she was there, but they were late by 15 minutes. In the house, they found a boiling kettle and a school notebook with the inscription, "For Michael." A few hours later, her car was found near the forest. Inside was a bloody handkerchief and her son's school diary. Agent Rain told journalists, "She no longer thinks only of revenge. She thinks of her son. This is our chance. She will return for him."
The night was sharp, like glass. On the street near Sarah's sister's house, only the steam of policemen's breath moved. They stood in pairs behind cars, in the gate, in the shadows of trees. The radio hissed briefly. The subject entered, waiting for command. Sarah appeared, just as neighbors had said, in a long, dark coat. She walked unhurriedly, as if returning to where the spare key had always been, where the kitchen tiles formed a familiar map of childhood. In the hallway it smelled of laundry and medicine. On the nightstand lay an album with the sticker, "Michael, grades 1 through 4. Sarah ran her finger over the cover. The boy slept in the room with the door half open. She did not enter. She stopped at the threshold as at a line that must not be crossed. At that moment, outside, at once, floodlights flared. "Sarah Langston!" The voice through the megaphone was hoarse but firm. "The house is surrounded." She took a breath, put her hand on the door frame as if leaving a mark for her former self. Then she took the album and went out onto the porch. "Are you satisfied now?" Quietly, almost without a question. Headlights merged into one white rectangle. Handcuffs clicked. Someone peeked out from a window where Christmas lights were still burning.
In the station, it was warm and dry, smelling of coffee and paper. Sarah sat upright, almost teacher-like. In front of her, FBI agent Thomas Rain and investigator Harris. On the table, a recorder, a glass of water, an envelope with photos. "Where were you the night of October 14?" began Harris. "In the car, near David's house," without pause. "Did you shoot?" Sarah looked at her palms. "For 10 years I thought what truth sounds like. It is not like a shot. It is thinner. It is like the crack of ice." Rain turned on the recorder. "Sarah, we need specifics. Who killed the lawyer? Who left the notes?" "The notes are mine. The words are mine. The decision is mine," she said quietly. "But in each letter, there was more than a bullet. There were years that no one listened to." Rain nodded to Harris. Formally, a confession. But both knew the trial would not only be about facts. The trial would be about pain.
In spring, the courthouse was surrounded by cameras. People stood in line from dawn to get inside and see the teacher ghost. In the hall, someone sold newspapers with Sarah's black and white portrait. On the board, the schedule of hearings. On the steps, students with posters, "Justice is law, not revenge," and "Would you believe her if she were your sister?" Prosecutor Erin Boyd was as sharp as a pen. She opened the process with a short, precise speech. The defendant created a list and methodically carried it out. First the husband and his mistress, then the lawyer, then the friend. Notes with phrases, "You helped," "You laughed." These are not cries of the soul. These are signatures under verdicts. In a civilized society, there is no private execution. Defense attorney Julian Moore, in thin-rimmed glasses, answered slowly, almost soothingly. In this same civilized society, for 10 years, a woman came with bruises and kept silent, because we kept silent, because we said, "This is their family, let them sort it out." Yes, Sarah took the law into her own hands, and yes, this is a crime, but if you're looking for roots, do not look only in her hand, look in our common silence. In the hall, some nodded approvingly, others hissed.
Mrs. Hayes, the neighbor, testified. I knocked and saw her cover bruises with foundation. I wanted to call. I was afraid. Sarah's student, a red-haired girl with freckles, held trembling fingers on the microphone. She taught me to read aloud when my voice shook. She said words are stronger than fear. I don't understand how words became bullets. The priest, whose name was on the found list, appeared without a cassock, in a gray jacket. She came to me. I told her about patience and prayer. Now I think I told her about silence. The prosecutor showed photos, schemes, timelines. She built the line, preparation, motive, actions, notes. The defense, the line of context, complaints, visits to the police, lack of measures, reports marked domestic conflict. While the hearings went on, TV studios argued live. Psychologists discussed the transitional moment when a victim becomes an aggressor. Lawyers examined precedents. Writers invented headlines, "The Town That Did Not Hear," "Justice with a Silencer." On social networks, two groups appeared, hashtag Sarah is guilty and hashtag Sarah cry. Under every post, hundreds of comments. She had no right, and did you have the right to be silent? At one of the final sessions, Prosecutor Boyd spoke harshly, like metronome beats. The defendant knew how to choose time, place, method. She slipped away from surveillance, left messages, understanding their media effect. This is a conscious series, not impulse, not a moment, a series. Behind every name, someone's mother, someone's daughter, someone's life that cannot be returned. Attorney Moore lifted a notebook, a copy of Sarah's diary, admitted as evidence, and said more quietly, almost pleading, "When you pass the verdict, remember not only the shots, but also the pauses before them, those years of pauses. We do not justify her, but we have no right to forget how she became this way." The judge asked, "Defendant, do you wish to speak?" Sarah stood up. The hall stilled so much that someone dropping a pen was heard. "My name is Sarah Langston. For 10 years I was a teacher, and for 10 years a student of silence. I taught children to read, and myself I learned to be silent. Every time I came for help, they told me, 'Endure, it will pass.' It did not pass. It rooted in me like rust. I do not ask forgiveness, but you do not ask me to forget. I know what I did. I know I took lives. I know my son will grow without a mother, and this is my cross. If you look for a monster, look at me. But if you look for its traces, look around. At the reports marked domestic conflict, at the neighbor's curtains behind which I cried, at the words with which you lulled me, everything will get better. I do not excuse myself. I leave you a lesson. Listen before the shots sound." She sat down. Someone in the hall sobbed. Someone whispered,
too late.
The jury returned after 6 hours. The secretary rose, unfolded the sheet. Guilty on all counts. The judge pronounced the sentence, like stating the weather. Life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Sarah did not bow her head. She only closed her eyes for a moment, as if putting a period in a diary.
She was taken to prison. On the highway, snow turned to gray slush. In the escort car, someone turned off the radio, where they were just reading the fresh editorial. The teacher ghost, monster or mirror? Michael moved in with his aunt. For a long time he did not speak to anyone at school, only drew with white chalk on black paper, a bridge along which a small figure walked with an album in her hands. Miltown returned to its usual rituals, fairs, discounts, school games, but in those sounds echoed emptiness. On the doors of many houses, new strong locks still hung, and on some, signs, dog. In church, the priest confessed to parishioners. We did not hear. Now we heard loudly, too loudly.
In spring, in the old classroom where Sarah once taught, chalk squeaked on the board. The literature teacher asked the students to write one phrase about justice. One boy wrote, "Justice is when they listen earlier." A girl next to him, "Justice is not a bullet."
And on the very bottom line, someone quietly, almost invisibly wrote, "Revenge is always the last lesson," and erased it, leaving a thin dust.